All right, guys, you know that there are a few things as close to my heart as our brave law enforcement officers. Of course, we back the blue here on Tomi Lahren is Fearless. And my longtime friend, and I mean longtime friend, going on, I think, 10 years now, is joining me now. Of course, the Wounded Blue founder and author of Rescuing 911, our friend, my personal friend, Randy Sutton, who fills us in all the tea on law enforcement. I have a lot to ask you about. I want to start off with actually what we were just talking about, because anytime we have law enforcement news in the headline, I know you've got the inside story, I know you got the inside scoop, and you can explain it to my audience that unfortunately watches maybe some mainstream media and they don't get the full picture. So I want you to explain it. Now, I'm going to give the overview. Happening in Ohio, Cincinnati. A young man, race doesn't matter, but for the rest of the country, apparently it does. Young black man, armed, was shot by a police officer due to, you'll tell me his actions, what he did. The father then targets an officer unrelated to the incident with his son, a targeted ambush on another officer, mows him down as he's directing traffic at a commencement address. And unfortunately, there are some that are on the side of the father, cheerleading him, raising money on his behalf. I thought we were maybe beyond this point where the war on cops was so mainstream, but it's still here, Randy.
It's very much alive and well. And this is a particularly egregious situation. So what happened was this 18-year-old was in a stolen car. The Cincinnati PD got in a pursuit with them. They bailed out. One of the officers was chasing this particular suspect, and the individual had a gun in his hand, turned towards the officer. The officer opened fire and killed him. Perfectly justified shooting by anyone's measurements. The father was notified and came down to view his son's body. And the very next day, he's in his vehicle. He sees a Hamilton County Sheriff's deputy, completely unrelated to anything, targets him for an assassination and mows him down with his car. And this deputy, his name is Larry, just retired after a 30-year distinguished career with this sheriff's department, but yet kept his special deputy's badge in order to help out. And that's what he was doing at a commencement exercise, helping out, directing traffic. And it cost him his life. Now, first of all, the fact that this individual could so cold-bloodedly attack and kill this officer, that's on one level. But then, in this weird, irrational world in which we now find ourselves, there are people who take up his side and actually set up a GoFundMe account for him and start sending him boatloads of money. It boggles the mind, Tommy, that there are people that instead of sending, nobody set up a GoFundMe for that murdered police officer.
Right.
And it's, I guess, even where I am after a 34-year police career and being so involved in the Wounded Blue and dealing with the issues of injured cops all over the nation, there's something so disappointing in that to me personally. And it's actually, that's one of the reasons I wrote that book, because it chronicles how we got in this weird place that we're in right now, this criminal justice crisis that still faces America.
For the part of GoFundMe, I believe that they don't actually allow people to set up for any type of violent crime. Give, Send, Go might be a little bit different. But the point of the matter is people are fundraising or attempting to fundraise on behalf of somebody who mowed down an officer, unrelated, by the way, to the death of his son. Now, I think everybody understands that no matter how you lose your child, it's a horrible tragedy. I understand that there could be some anger there.
Of course.
But I would also ask that father, where were you when your son was allegedly stealing a vehicle, allegedly pulls a gun on a cop? Where were you there? Where was your advocacy then? See, a lot of people it's a lack of accountability also for people acting decent in society, people just upholding the social and societal contract that we all abide by or make our best attempt to abide by. But you see it, and I can't help but think, obviously, this isn't an officer-related incident, but in Frisco, Texas, Carmelo Anthony, the young man who allegedly, though admittedly, stabbed a peer at a track meet, and again, a huge fundraiser in his name. And it feels like not only is it law enforcement, good versus bad, it also seems to be racial, and these undertones are still in existence. But like you, I was hopeful that we kind of turned a corner in the last couple of years after the Summer of Love 2020 George Floyd. I thought that the American people were turning a corner and supporting law enforcement. And I think to a degree we have. But these cases, they're still happening.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I hear, and of course, I literally talk to police officers around the nation all the time. Most of common America truly supports its law enforcement. In fact, I get more comments now from officers who say, you know what, I never had so many people come up and say thank you. Or they're in a diner and they're getting a cup of coffee and someone pays for it.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening probably more so than any other time in the past, which shows you that America truly does care about their cops. In fact, there was a very unpublished study that just came out on the Gallup poll that shows that the respect level for law enforcement has advanced on the latest poll more than any other institution in America. Why
Wow.
aren't we hearing about that, right? But in all reality, I fully believe this, that the vast majority of Americans trust and support in their law enforcement. That's not the same for the politicians. That's not the same for the left. I mean, I never really considered myself deeply political, right? I always felt that being a cop, I stayed out of politics. I didn't believe that politics belonged in policing until it was forced down our throats. And now we are still seeing in states like California, in states like New York, the anti-law enforcement politics is very, very much at play. And as I talk about in this book, this didn't happen overnight. Rescuing 911 is basically two things. It's a history of how we got here. This began under the Obama administration. This began, if you could point to one particular moment in time, it was President Obama coming out publicly and saying the police acted stupidly when they arrested his buddy, who was really the one who acted stupidly at Harvard. Causing the president had to apologize. But what that did, that was a symbol to the people in this country. Hey, if the president of the United States is going to demean law enforcement, maybe this is something to look at. And that's where we began. And of course, under the Obama administration is where the Department of Justice was weaponized against policing.
Yeah.
And that carried over on steroids under Biden. Thank God for President Trump, who is turning this ship around. But this isn't happening overnight, Tommy. We've lost so many police officers, not just in the line of duty, which of course we have. In fact, just this year alone, we've had 25 deaths. And almost every single day a police officer is shot in the line of duty in this country. Last year, 79,000. I want you to think about this number. 79,000 police officers were physically assaulted in the line of duty. That's 30,000 more than just 5 years ago. Why? And that's what I go into in Rescuing 911. It's the diminishment of accountability. It is the insane laws that have been passed by like Hochul in New York and Gavin Newsom in California, where they hold no criminals accountable. But if a police officer has any signs of doing something that may not even be wrong,
Just that
they're going to
makes
be
people
prosecuted.
feel not good, or it's spun out of control in the media, and the narrative is always
Right.
anti-cop in these places. Another area I want to talk about is Minnesota, because
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota, Minneapolis in particular,
Yep.
they can't find law enforcement officers that want to do that, and I think we well know why, because of the Summer of Love, George Floyd. I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to be a police officer there. But I know you have friends in Minnesota and in policing in Minneapolis. What are they telling you about how bad things have gotten there?
Very much so. In fact, I literally had this conversation with the officer who was in charge of the police union during the George Floyd debacle, Bob Kroll, and Bob's wife wrote the book about the truth about the George Floyd murder trial. And if you haven't seen it, it's an amazing documentary. It's an amazing book, and the truth is only starting to trickle out about what really happened there. But they can't hire cops. They're still so out of control. You still got a mayor there that is anti-law enforcement. The entire Minneapolis City Council despises policing, and as a result, there's about 50% of the number of officers that are required by law are actually working there, because just like many other places in America, it's been so demeaning on officers. They've been dehumanized, they've been defunded, and as a result, we have lost more cops than any time in American history. And you can't push a button and begin. You can't hire enough cops now and train them within a reasonable period of time. That's why the criminal justice crisis is real, and it's going to take a generation to fix. But the only way we can fix it, Tommy, is if people get involved.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I wrote this book. It's a call to action. Yeah, it explains how we got here, but it also, everybody who cares about this nation, cares about the people, cares about your family, you have to become an activist, even if that activism is just you getting to the polls and putting people into office that care about you, that care about this country, that care about the safety. Because if you look at the number of people who are actually voting and putting these morons into office, like, I mean, there's so many names I could throw out.
It just feels so hopeless, though, Randy, in these places, because for some of these places, they're never going to vote conservative. You know, places in California, Minneapolis, you know, you have states that have, you know, municipalities that are more conservative. But overall, if you're in Los Angeles, if you're in Minneapolis, if you're in New York City, which there is still some love and support for law enforcement, I believe, by the majority, to be quite honest with you. But the people that run these cities, even if they're not just out there bad-mouthing law enforcement, they're doing things and enacting policies that make the job impossible. The no cash bail, basically the catch and release, where you got these people in and out, and that, you know, you just saw it in South Carolina. This guy with a rap sheet a mile long, able to go and shoot a young girl in the chest after has a list of robbery and everything. I mean, running the spectrum for 10 years. He's still walking the streets, and people are like, how does this possibly happen in America? But police officers have to be incredibly frustrated, the hard work they do, and it doesn't amount in some cases to anything.
The frustration level is at levels that we haven't seen since George Floyd. When we saw the cities burn, and we saw literally those who were attacking law enforcement being given every ability to just leave, no arrests made. I mean,
in some places paid out.
Of course, you look at Austin, Texas. This is one of the things that drives me absolutely insane. They have a Soros DA there. Austin PD was literally besieged, and these officers, it looked like the Alamo.
Yeah,
they were, and they used rubber bullets, and they used everything except lethal force to defend themselves. And what does the district attorney do? He doesn't charge any of the rioters. He charges 12 of the police officers for using less lethal ammunition, and indicted them. Until the people stand up and say, I've had enough, I'm not putting that guy into office again, we're going to continue to see this at play. And so as a result, we're going to continue to see the impossibility of getting the proper amount of trained police officers. And here's another problem, Tommy. What are these municipalities and cities doing because they can't hire enough cops? they're lowering the standards.
Mm.
And this makes me cringe, because what happens is, and this we've seen this at play before, where because of political reasons you want to hire people that shouldn't be cops. It happened here in Memphis, right? They hired a bunch of cops who shouldn't have been there. Some had criminal histories, and what happened? They committed acts that were absolutely egregious, and people are going, well, that's the police. That's the police, because these city councils and these city administrators are taking the cream of the crop and devouring them, because they don't want to be cops they don't want to be cops because they made it so dangerous, and so they're lowering the standards and hiring people who shouldn't be there, and then it becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the left says, you see, that's what those cops do. That's why we have to hold the line. You know, when we went to an all-volunteer military, you know, and the Army, they couldn't get enough people, the Navy, the Air Force, so they were offering, these great rewards for, and incentives. What did the Marines do? They just said the few, the proud, the Marines. Mm-hmm. And they were filled up, right? That's what we need to do as police departments. The few, the blue.
Yeah.
Something along, I was asked in an interview, a national interview, what do the police really need? And I said they need the best PR company in the world. Yeah. Because the narrative is what has been so damaged, and the realities are far different. You know, every single day I hear amazing stories of heroism. I see kindness, that little acts that are literally saving lives. We're saving, the thought process of a child, right? When they meet the kindness of a police officer, that stays with them for their entire life. And this is happening all across America, but nobody sees it. And yet that is the truth. That's the reality. And so when I it's one of the reasons why I get so frustrated. You know, when I see police officers being demeaned, I see them. I just got back from Las Cruces, New Mexico, Tommy.
Oh, boy.
Where the Wounded Blue has really played a major role in helping this department, who has been traumatized. You know, police trauma is real, right? This terrible situation where in just a short period of time, one officer was murdered brutally. Another took his own life. And shortly after that, in another liberal attack on law enforcement, a police officer who had a completely justifiable shooting was arrested and charged by the Attorney General. And then the egregious, I don't know if you heard the details of this. This officer, the suspect grabbed his partner's taser, knocked him down, tried to pull his gun, couldn't get that, but did get the taser. And as he's pulling it out, his partner shot him and killed him. Justifiable by any stretch of the imagination. The district attorney cleared him. Well, white cop, black suspect, the liberal governor basically ordered the Attorney General to arrest the officer, put him on trial. And my friend was the use of force expert, who's the best in the country, calls me, says, this is a slam dunk acquittal. Within 2 hours, he was found guilty. And we're looking at how? The foreperson of the jury, this is unbelievable, never disclosed that she was an incredible supporter of Black Lives Matter, had actually written her college papers on white cops killing black suspects, lied in her answers, and it was discovered. And the Attorney General said, this is his defense of her, because there's an active request for a mistrial because of it. He said that it's her First Amendment right to lie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, go.
Isn't that perjury though?
Yeah, that's called perjury.
If you're a juror,
right, that's called perjury.
Perjury.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't bad enough, there were 2 jurors that were not guilty jurors and they were replaced by 2 alternates.
Well, that's New Mexico for you.
That's
why,
New Mexico.
I mean, is it really any wonder and that's why so many went to Florida. Florida was actually recruiting law enforcement officers, and they were going
In a big way.
They were going. They were like, bye-bye. I still
Yeah.
want to do this job, but I'm going to do it somewhere where I'm supported. Florida happens to be one of those places. A lot of great red states in this country where police officers can still do their jobs, even if they're in a blue city. Being in a red state helps. But some of these places, I just don't know why anybody would sign up for that. I cannot, unless you have, like you said, unless you are the bottom of the barrel and you have no other options and you're just being a police officer for the hell of it, why would good, decent people ever want to serve their community in places like that?
I spoke with the wife of that officer who was sent to prison and their 2 young children. In fact, a donor, and this, I'm going to say something here that may raise some eyebrows. I was down there shortly after this officer was convicted, and a donor who wanted to remain anonymous sent me $10,000 to give to that family. He said, I want you to give them this message: America cares. Think of that.
Wow.
So I gave that donation, $10,000, to the wife of this officer and the 2 children with the department there. 2 days later is when it was discovered that this egregious perjury took place, and the judge released him on bond. You know what the bond was? $10,000.
Wow.
I'm not saying God was involved in this, but
Yeah.
never know.
Wow.
So that young man is out of jail, but he's facing retrial as this moves through the court. And I've spoken with him, and he's braver than I am. He was in prison. He was whisked off to prison immediately and spent like a month there before this came up. And I can tell you that the love that this man has for his family got him through this.
Yeah.
And the love that this department had for each other. I've never seen an agency that had better morale amongst itself, because these cops care about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Their chief is amazing. I'm often very critical of leadership of law enforcement.
Rightfully so, yeah.
And I am proud to say that this chief cares about his cops to the point where he brought my entire team in to help. So you see all this negativity, and at the same time you see the dichotomy. You see these cops they're literally in a war zone. The day I left, 18 people were shot, 2 children, and one of the things that we do at the Wounded Blue is we help these guys that are seeing all this trauma. Think about this. They have civilian employees too, right? They have to look at the video of the deaths of these children. They have to frame by frame. Do you know what that does to them internally, to emotionally? And these police officers who literally have to pick up the bodies of seeing a dead child and bodies strewn all over. This is the reality of policing, and it's dark, it's dirty, it affects the heart, it affects the brain, and that's why the Wounded Blue is such an important organization. And we've helped more than 15,000 cops in the last 5 years, and it's not just those who are physically injured; it's the emotional injuries, because sometimes it's a lot harder to heal that.
Right? I'm sure. It's such a tight-knit community, but even so, it's like you look at somebody that could potentially, is being treated like a criminal, by the way.
Right.
And it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're up against what you're up against. Again, I don't know why anybody would continue to do it. They're far better people than me to sign up for something like that. I also want to ask you about now, not even just police officers, but we've got our ICE agents, our CBP agents. They're finally able to do their job, by the way. They're stoked. Right. They're working with law enforcement, local law enforcement, in places that allow it.
Correct.
And they're doing it in Florida. They're rounding up all these criminal aliens. They're doing it in places that allow them. We're having ICE raids here in Tennessee. you're seeing it, and you're seeing law enforcement and ICE agents and CBP, you're seeing them all work together to keep this country safe. But it's only a matter of time until the ICE agents, they're already demonized, but it's only a matter of time until we go back to what we saw in 2018, 2019, where the ICE agents are being attacked, and we're already seeing it, but I have a feeling it's going to get worse. And law enforcement cooperating with them, target on their back, even more so now. What are law enforcement officers telling you about their cooperation on immigration type issues?
One of the things that has taken place is the detainer situation. Okay, for those that aren't familiar with it, and this is for years, the way that ICE and immigration have worked together with law enforcement is when there is someone incarcerated that is clearly there because they are a criminal, ICE will determine that that their status is to be revoked or removed. They do what's called a detainer, and that is exactly what you detain this subject for 48 hours and notify us, and then if we don't come pick them up within 48 hours, then release them. And that has been business as usual for decades until the Biden administration. And that is what caused the revolution, if you will, where the including law enforcement leaders just saying, you know what, we're not gonna do that anymore. It's like you can't not follow the law.
Right.
I mean, that's like this judge up in Wisconsin that lets a criminal suspect go out the back door, who she should be in prison.
Yeah.
But now that some sense of normalcy is being restored at the federal level, that Tom Homan, that guy, I love that guy. Love that guy. He'll say it exactly as it is. And of course, the Department of Justice is being refurbished and being, their directions are being, much clearer and effective. But you still have, the rebellious left that says we're not even gonna cooperate. Now, I think 562 police agencies have just signed memorandums with the federal government that they will assist with immigration stuff. That's very different than what was in the past, which was, cops don't do immigration work.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And this is something that should be discussed. Because the illegal community, before this huge influx, I worked in an area in Las Vegas that was heavily Hispanic, and I created a squad that was called the Hispanic American Resource Team, and what we did is I pulled Hispanic officers from their patrol duties, put them on an investigative squad, and we investigated crimes against the illegal community. And let me tell you, getting the illegal community to trust us to investigate the crimes towards them was a very difficult situation. But we needed to let them know we weren't immigration.
Yeah.
We were only interested in those people. I mean, we're talking heinous crimes. We're talking sexual assault, extortion, robbery, and then the people that were committing these crimes were often illegals themselves, but not everybody. There were people in positions like I arrested 2 lawyers who were extorting their own clients, and because they were afraid to come to us and report it, these lawyers were making hundreds of thousands of dollars extorting their own clients. So but the reason I'm saying this is because there has to be a separation. Cops shouldn't be immigration officers. And there are laws in place on the federal level that if you are a crime victim, you won't be deported. In fact, you can get legal status. But you don't hear that. And yet it's a part of the principle of policing that yet we need to do the legal things. We need to put criminals in jail, and then when there's a detainer, you turn them over to ICE. Yeah. That is what you should be doing, And I've seen sheriffs and police leaders get up there on their high horse and demean that relationship. And it's critical that they do their damn job. And if you're not going to do it, then get the hell out. You don't deserve to wear that sheriff's badge.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to wear that chief's badge if you are going to circumvent the laws of this country. But we're seeing, we got 17,000 different police agencies in this country. You got a different chief, you got a different system, you got a different mayor, and I got to feel sorry for a lot of these chiefs, because if they don't toe the line, then they get fired. So you're in Minneapolis. What are you going to say, chief? You're going to say no? They'll just fire you and they'll put somebody else.
Exactly.
So it's a really difficult situation. I wish that there was one pat answer, but there isn't. But are we moving in a direction that's better? Yes, I do believe we are. I am seeing a higher respect level. We're beginning to see a little better recruitment. Okay. But it's going to take a long time to right this ship, Tommy. There's been so much damage done. And, it takes, from the time I decide that I want to go take a police test to the time that I'm an adequate cop and I'm competent, it's going to be 3 to 4 years. It's a huge learning curve. Mm-hmm. And so this is a generational problem. And that's why I wrote this book. I wrote Rescuing 911, the fight for America's safety, for 2 reasons. One, as an educational tool, because people have been gaslighted for years about the police community. They've been fed such a line of BS. And the reality is that the vast majority of police officers are courageous. They have empathy. They have sympathy for the people that they serve. They serve courageously and honorably. This gaslighting that police officers are racist, brutal. It's done so much damage, and it's been carried on by, and it's still being carried on by political leaders on the left. It's still being carried on by entertainers, by the media. The media, oh, good Lord Almighty, what the stories that they write, and the people who read the mainstream media, see the mainstream media, and don't get the proper information. How else are they supposed to, and that's why the trust level in media is, even lower than Congress, God help us. But the reality is this: I see the results of the emotional, the psychological impacts on officers every single day. I literally live with the police suicide epidemic. Right. We've had officers. I have sat across from officers, just as you and I are sitting, where they're holding their head in their hands, crying uncontrollably because of how they've been treated, and yet they are so dedicated. See, if you don't care, you're not going to get upset. Yeah. It's if you care about who you are, about what you do, about who you serve, that's where it tears your soul out. Mm-hmm. And that's what leads to early retirement. It leads to health problems. Yeah. It leads to suicide. And, years ago, you came to an event that the Wounded Blue did, where we were holding our National Law Enforcement Survival Summit. And this is critical. So I know that police officers are listening to you right now, listening to this discussion. We have the National Law Enforcement Survival Summit in September 22nd through the 25th in Las Vegas. If I could have one wish, I would wish that every cop in America could attend this. It is life-changing. It's every aspect of surviving a law enforcement career, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, relationships, your children. When you hear children up on a panel talking about what it felt like to see their dad come home with a bullet in him, you'll get a completely different, you'll get an understanding that you can't get anywhere else. I have literally had police officers stand up at this conference and say, if it weren't for this conference, I was going to kill myself. That's how critical it is, how important it is, because cops feel alone in their feelings. I mean, the last book that I did, the 2 books that I did ago was called A Cop's Life. And that's the name of my podcast, by the way, A Cop's Life. And I got so many messages from police officers. It's a dark book. It gets really deep into some of my experiences. And so I've been in some dark spots. They thanked me, said, Randy, I thought I was alone in my feelings. And that feeling of aloneness, when you are in a critical incident, when you have to take the life of another human being. I just addressed a whole group of cops in Vegas, and I was telling them about that I live with memories, as we all do.
Mm-hmm.
Officers came up to me afterward, literally in tears, saying, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. And that's why it's so critical that an organization like the Wounded Blue exists.
Right.
Because, I got cops who have been shot, stabbed, beaten, run over.
And I've seen them, yeah.
Officers have been blinded, officers in wheelchairs, and yet they continue to serve as peer support team members. And so we are literally a resource for every cop in America. If you're struggling, you don't have to take that journey by yourself.
Well, the Wounded Blue, I've been a part of it, and you and I have had so many conversations, but an amazing organization, an amazing event. I hope people will check that out. Hope members of the media go to the Survival Summit because they could learn something too. Randy, you're always an excellent resource, not only for officers, but for civilians who need a better understanding. Even people that support law enforcement, they can't fully comprehend what it's like. And it's great that you share that with us so that we can have some level of understanding, because it goes a long way. And there are a lot of people that they want to support, and
Absolutely.
they don't want to believe the lies, but it's hard. They need the guidance. And you always provide that, not only through Wounded Blue, but through your many books, your latest one, Rescuing 911. I hope everyone will check out Wounded Blue, and of course, check out everything that Randy does, because he's such an excellent resource. If I ever have a question on law enforcement, Randy's the go-to person, and he literally knows everybody. So check out Wounded Blue. Check out, of course, Randy's latest book. He has so many. But let's support our law enforcement officers. Let's back the blue, not only in just saying that we do, but let's find ways that we can do it materially and physically and emotionally and spiritually and symbolically. Randy, thank you so much for being here in Nashville. God bless all the law enforcement officers that you work with, current and retired, and thanks so much for all you do for the community in general.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and so does law enforcement.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this very special. My favorite episodes are the law enforcement episodes of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Catch full episodes of the show on outkick.com, on Fox Nation, foxnews.com, so many places. Also, of course, the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. That's going to do it for me and Randy from Nashville. God bless you all. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.